Hello and welcome to the Cybersecurity Leadership Series organized by Cyber Houston. We are live and excited to have you join us today. In this series, we highlight our cybersecurity rock stars, or masterminds as we call them, and bring you valuable information, especially during this unprecedented time. I am Umesh, Verma, CEO of Blue Lance and Cyber Houston. We would like to thank our sponsors today, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Blue Lance, Reneka Digital, and the University of Houston Downtown for underwriting the Cybersecurity Mastermind series. Now, we are happy to answer questions along the way. So if you have a question or comment that enters your mind anytime during the session, please enter it in the comments section on Facebook or YouTube under the live video, and we will try and answer them. I already see several little comments on the side, and we welcome our users and our viewers. Today's topic is the business side of cybersecurity. Our expert is Pierluigi Stella, CTO at NetworkBox USA, and a founding member of the Houston Cyber Summit Planning Committee. Welcome, Pierluigi. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Umesh, and actually good morning. And thank you for having me on this video conference show today.
Well, thank you for joining us. So Pierluigi, before we get started, tell us a little bit about NetworkBox USA.
NetworkBox USA is part of a managed security services provider that is global, with a presence in over 15 countries. It's a company that has existed since the year 2000. We provide our own hardware, software services for managed security. We have a security call center with 3 ISO certifications and PCI DSS attestation. It uses about 150 threat intelligence and threat analysis partners to provide real-time protection to our global clients. We have been in the US since 2003, and we're proud to be still here and have a nice track record of protecting our clients.
Well, awesome. And so over the years, cybersecurity has developed into much more than setting up a firewall and just changing rules and settings. Now security affects everybody, particularly in these times, in these COVID-related times where many people are just working, the majority of people are working from home. So in today's session, Pierluigi will be dissecting the steps towards creating a top-down culture of cybersecurity in our organizations. Now, again, as a reminder, please feel free to post your questions in the comments section, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Thank you for making time to present to our viewers today, Pierluigi. So with that, I turn over the presentation to you.
Thank you again, Umesh. It's obviously a pleasure to be here. I assume, am I sharing the screen correctly? It is being shared. You see, there it is. You see my slides? Okay, so the business of cybersecurity. I want to introduce what is my opinion in how we should approach our conversation with our business people when we talk about cybersecurity, so that the next time we go and present a budget to the board of directors, rather than shaking through our pants because maybe they will slash it by 50%, we will walk out of the meeting like heroes with the budget between us. Okay. So the first thing that we need to consider is the change in mentality in many different ways. We are used to considering cybersecurity like an expense, like an insurance at best. The problem with the approach is that expenses usually are to be kept low, and that becomes a possible problem. So what we need to do is we need to understand, first of all, ourselves, The cybersecurity is actually a contributor to the company's profit. It is not a pure cost that you can eliminate. Everything in a company has a cost, obviously, because you need to spend money to produce your revenue. But at the same time, there are certain costs that may be viewed as avoidable. But cybersecurity isn't avoidable, because without cybersecurity, you can't produce revenue. And that's the mentality that we need to all acquire. We need to acquire it first, and then we can explain it to those who are putting the budgets. Okay? So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to change the language. Right? So we talk about our issues in ways that, quite frankly, nobody else can understand us. And we seem proud of it. Right? So I was thinking about that just this morning as I was rehearsing this presentation. I was thinking of my doctor the first time he talked about idiopathic hypertension. And I looked at him and I said, I know that hypertension means high blood pressure. Idiopathic, I don't know. So I looked it up, and it means practically that he has no idea what's causing it. Right? Doctors have very funny ways of talking, to the point that there is actually a Webster's dictionary of medicine language. Well, we seem to be doing the same thing. We talk about things like security posture. The first time I talked about security posture to the business, a business coach that I had hired a couple of years ago, he looked at me thinking I had needed an orthopedic surgeon to fix my posture. We truly need to speak a language that more people can understand. And I'm not talking about when we are at a conference or when we talk about each other. That's fine. It is our language, so we understand quickly what we are discussing. But when we are outside of our rooms, outside of our dungeons, and we're talking to the board, we need to adopt a language that's their language. And their language is business. They understand numbers, they understand revenue, they understand profit, cost, losses, ROI. These are the things they understand. And these are the things that we need to learn to speak. So obviously, this was the slide. We spoke about this slide. If we speak a language that they don't, we end up with a budget sliced. Let's start from an assumption, as Umesh correctly introduced earlier. Cybersecurity isn't something that the board or the CEO doesn't understand. In 20 years ago, when I started Mailbox USA, yeah, we were talking very often to people that had no idea what cybersecurity was. They had no idea that they even needed anything at all, not even an antivirus. Today, cybersecurity is in everybody's mind. So that is an advantage. We are living in a time when we speak of something that people know, at least they know exists. We don't need to start from explaining what it is that we're talking about. They, the bosses, the ones that approve the budgets, don't want a company that doesn't have cybersecurity, because they realize that they have to have it, whether they like it. Therefore, we need to learn how to change our conversation so that cybersecurity is no longer a pure cost, just a cost center where if I reduce it, I increase my profit, but rather a necessity in order to generate revenue. It's something like if I'm making bread, I can't do it without flour. Right? Well, that is the kind of mentality we need to have. No matter what your company does, if you are trying to make pipelines and you don't have proper cybersecurity, you may not be able to make the pipeline because your systems get hacked and you no longer have access to your computers, and the pipeline is not going to be made. And there couldn't be anything farther from cybersecurity than pipelines and many other things around. And yet, it's a necessary component. So the formula, obviously, for what is that the company wants to keep high is the profit. And to increase the profit, you can do revenue, you can increase the revenue, you can reduce the cost. If you are viewed as a cost and somehow the revenue goes down, guess what your bosses are going to try and do to maintain the profit where it was before. Keep also in consideration that to keep the profit stable, the cost needs to go proportionally down lower in percentage than how lower the revenue is. Right? 10 minus 8 equals 2. Right? So if you have a cost of 10, a revenue of 10 and a cost of 8, you have a profit of 2. To keep the profit at 2, if the revenue goes down to 50%, you need to reduce the cost to 3, which is 66%. Right? So if you put yourself in a position where you are viewed only as a cost, the risk is constant that somebody is going to try to reduce the cost. And by the way, this becomes personal because as a security engineer, security CISO, a security analyst, anything you might be doing in the company in security, you're probably the highest cost. Because whatever you put in your pocket every month as a salary, consider that your company is only spending 40-50% more in total. Okay? Because they pay for your taxes, they pay for your social security, they pay for your computer, for your desk, for your lights, for your 401k and medical insurance and any other benefit you may have. So when you're in a position of being a cost, it's not just the firewall that it's kept. The risk at some point is that your own job is on the line. And this is a position where you really don't want to be anytime. So one type of conversation where we traditionally, and for a few years now, described how cybersecurity contributes to the revenue is by talking about cost avoidance. Right? What is cost avoidance? The idea of saying, yes, this firewall will cost you $10,000, but without it, you will incur a breach that will cost you $100,000. So, roughly speaking, you might think, I just saved you $90,000. Right? Which is a conversation that has merit, by the way. I'm not dismissing it. It's a conversation that does have merit. The problem is that it's a conversation. It is a bit. It's hard to sustain because the analysis of cost of what a breach will cost is a bit hard. There's a lot of stuff that goes into calculating the cost of a breach. It's something that can be done, definitely, but it's something that needs to be done carefully. Because you don't want, it cannot be objectionable, clearly, once you present it. It cannot be that somebody raises their hand in the board that says, well, this is kind of similar to the same here. Right? At the same time, this is also a conversation that over the years has changed. The cost avoidance in 2010 or in 2005 was very different from the history. We'll try to go a little bit into the detail of that. So how much will an incident cost you? Well, first of all, consider that in some of the most recent studies has demonstrated that 60% of businesses, small and medium, that have gone through a breach have literally gone out of business. So how much did that breach cost them? 100%. It was the cost of the business. Right? So it's it is there is the difficulty of explaining what goes into cybersecurity costs or cost avoidance. Is that in reality it's all suppositions. However, these suppositions must be made because you have to come up with them. So let's see what should go in. Right? You have to consider things like you have to rebuild your computers. Right? You may have to restore the backup. You may have lost some data if in the process. And obviously, I'm talking about a breach that destroys one of your databases. Maybe ransomware at the corporate server, and you don't want to pay the ransom, hopefully. Then you have to consider that there is a productivity loss. If there is no data to work with, your employees may not be able to work. If your ransomware took over 80 PCs and you need to rebuild all of them, you have 80 people that are twisting their thumbs while you rebuild their computers. At some point, you may want to bring in some help from outside because you want to speed up the process, and that's a cost. You may bring in some help to figure out what actually happened, because I thought we had decent security, now we got attacked, I want to know why so that I can fix it. That's forensics, and that has a cost. All of these things need to go into this evaluation. And it's a process that is part of traditional cybersecurity. We learn how to do it, and we can properly do it. Not by ourselves, it's in collaboration with the business people, because only they truly know the cost of certain losses. But we know at least what questions to ask. One cost that is intangible and hard to quantify, but must be considered, is the perception that you create, the loss of confidence. That is something that can be detrimental. It's probably the reason why so many companies end up going out of business. Not because they can't afford to rebuild a computer, but because the customers go away. Because during those 3 weeks that you are down because your website was attacked, your customers have found a different provider and they don't come back. That's a risk. The perception, especially in 2020, is a very important aspect that needs to be considered. Because if I lose my credit card because your website wasn't protected, I probably will not come back to your website again. I'll give you an example that is probably known to all of you. Target 2013. Why do I go back so far in time? Because it was the first very well-known, very big breach. It was so big that it practically affected everybody in the US. And these are the numbers. You can see they lost 46% of their revenue, and their stock went down 9%. Those are staggering numbers. They survived because they're a very large corporation. A smaller company, it's like you're a little boat in its savannah, or a big transatlantic in the same savannah. They survived, a smaller boat might not. So that's also another part of the reason why so many small and medium businesses end up sinking when there is a serious breach. There is a serious problem. So how do we evaluate cost avoidance? One of the proposed formulas to demonstrate that our investments in cybersecurity do actually contribute to revenue because they have a return on investment is the one you're looking at on the screen right now. ROSI stands for return on security investment. So it's a slightly modified formula of the ROI. Why? Because in the first part of the equation, that here says ALE times mitigation ratio. In a traditional ROI, that would be the income you produce with the investment. Here is the cost you avoid. How do you evaluate the cost you avoid? ALE stands for annualized loss expectancy. Sorry, my tongue is stumbling over my words. And it means what? It means how much money am I going to lose if I get breached throughout the year, multiple times, right? Because the assumption here is I have a vulnerability, I have something missing in my security. I can be breached in a certain way, and if I don't fix it, I'm going to be breached X number of times. Right? So an example could be that every time I get breached, I lose $20,000, and I estimate that I get breached 10 times a year. Now, the mitigation ratio is how much a calculation, an estimate of how many times in percentage I can reduce this loss if I implement proper cybersecurity. To go back to the ALE, I'm going to mention those acronyms that we should never mention to other people. ALE equals SLE times ARO. It's not bad words. SLE is the single loss expectancy, meaning how much am I going to lose with one breach, and the ARO is annual rate of occurrence, how many times it's going to happen in a year. And obviously, cost of solution is cost of solution. Clearly what it says. So this is an example, a number. ALE, as I mentioned before, I lose $20,000 for a single breach, which by the way might be very small. This might be a very small company. I can get breached 10 times in a year. I make an assumption that I can mitigate this 90%, and the total ROSI comes out to 260%. So that is quite a substantial number. Right? If I can go to the board and say, look, I need $50,000 to fix this, because otherwise, here's what's going to happen. We're going to lose $200,000. Even if I don't put the mitigation in there, it's pretty evident that it's okay. It's a good breach. It's not fantastic, but obviously, if I could achieve the same by spending $20,000 or $10,000, I'd be happier. But it's certainly something that will get their attention. They will listen, because there are hard numbers there that can show that there is a reason why I want what to them might look like a toy. Let's not forget that very often the perception that the world has of IT people is that we are geeks and we like toys. And the reaction when we go into a meeting asking for tools is that we are asking for the next PS3, because it's now the PS4. That's what we are often up against. Right? Like my son that wants a PS5 because now the PS3 is obsolete. It's the same kind of eyebrow-raising request. And with these conversations, with this type of numbers in front of them, then it becomes different. Because now we are saying, no, we're not playing toys. We're not asking for the latest shiny tool. We are actually making a business analysis where we know that we are being breached or that we can be breached. And if that happens, we are going to lose this much every time. And at some point, it may become that we can no longer recover. Therefore, here is what we need. So this is a conversation you can have with somebody that looks over your numbers. The previous three charts before, I talked about what goes into calculating the cost of the breach. Over the years, though, I have argued adamantly about the fact that that is not all that goes into the cost evaluation. It should go into cost evaluation, because there are other factors that are not in those 4 bullet points that I had there earlier. There are factors like GDPR and CCP and HIPAA and all the other regulations. If you have to be PCI compliant, you get attacked, you lose the database. American Express walks in and gives you a $50,000 fine because it's part of the contract and they can do it. And they can actually take away your American Express contract. Now you can no longer do proper business, because in the US, very few people pay with cash. If you cannot take cards, you're pretty much toast in your business, right? So you want to be PCI compliant, and you don't want to breach. That must go into the cost and into the risk analysis, there must be a cost that is put in the equation. If you are if you have to be GDPR or GDPR or CCPA compliant, most likely you have to be both. There are even other things. Those two regulations, laws actually, have jail time baked into them. They have responsibilities that all the way up to the CEO and the board. So when, to give you an example, Experian in 2019, they lost hundreds of millions of records. Most likely when they did the risk analysis, I'm quite convinced that they did it the traditional way by considering the time it would take to rebuild the database, and they probably didn't even consider the loss of image because they practically run a monopoly. So their risk evaluation and their cost evaluation was done probably in a traditional way. But now we have regulations like CCPA. So if you go back and revisit that kind of situation, now you need to consider the possible fines that come with it and the possible legal consequences that come with it. Before GDPR and CCPA, we already had, for each state, 48 states in the US, had some sort of breach of disclosure where you had to also do remediation. Right? In the case of Target, they were made to pay for the reissuing of the credit cards. They had to send letters and pay for the letters they were sent to all those who lost their credit card. If you send a letter, it's $1, but if you have 100 million letters, that's a lot of money. Right? So these costs, traditionally, we aren't used to putting them into those equations. But as the situation over time has changed, we need to learn that these costs must go in there, because more and more they will be higher than the actual cost of recovery from the physical cost of recovering server or calling somebody from the forensics. They will be the largest percentage of their risk that they are taking. To give you another example.
So Pierluigi, we have a question coming in that we may want to field. We have Andy asking, based on all the information that you just provided with the cost of compliance, etc., what are the major pushbacks you get from customers whenever you want to present cybersecurity solutions to them?
Depending on the topic. So the network box sells a roster of things, and the approach seems to be a little different depending on what conversation we're having with the client, the prospect, I should say. When we're talking about perimeter defense, very often pushback is we already have it. No matter what they have, we already have it. And that, to explain the reasons why my objections, I would take an entire hour of another conversation about managed security versus security managed in-house, and the firewall versus service, and the fact that security is not a piece of hardware. Right? So that becomes a conversation about what perimeter security really is, and how a firewall that's installed and left alone isn't really security for your perimeter. When we talk about network security, internal network security, the conversation today, unfortunately, is still a regulatory conversation. Because even though we have all all the stuff I said in this presentation until now sounds logical when you talk to prospects. Their first reaction often is, I don't need it. And now it becomes an uphill conversation, not you do need it, not because PCI said you have to have it, but really because you have no visibility by your network. And if you do get breached, you will never know. It may take 6 months for you to find out. Right? So the objection is different depending on what you're discussing. My counter objection is different as well. At the end of the day, it's always about visibility, constant visibility, because that is the best way to be prepared.
So, and then we have another question from Fortunato. I think he's asking, how does price begin to play into the equation? And that's the purpose and the genesis of all of your presentation, is that cost, and how do you explain it? And then, what do you do to overcome those objections?
Well, price obviously has a part in the conversation with the prospects, always. Whether you're looking for a t-shirt or for a firewall or for a security services solution, price is a factor. However, I learned that by direct experience, that if the price is too low, people don't take it seriously. There is a perception of certain things have got to cost a certain amount. Because if 10 competitors cost between $40,000 and $50,000 and you cost 20, what are you not giving me that they are? Right? So price is a factor that needs to be played from different angles. It cannot be too high, because obviously if you put it into the equation and the return on investment becomes negative, then you don't have a play. But it can also not be too low, because when it looks too good, people get suspicious. It needs to be, for us providers, vendors, it is truly a learning experience of understanding what the market is willing to pay, what the market perceives as the real the threat, the danger, the cost of the danger, and what is it willing to pay for in return. Because in general, when you run a business, you do not want to be too low also for another reason. Because if the market is willing to pay 200 for something instead of 50, you just actually lost 150 as a business person. So you have to adjust your position in the market based on all these factors. What is the problem you're solving? How much would the problem cost to the client? So how much value you are providing, true value, tangible numbers, and then what is the perception that the market has of your value in terms of how much they're willing to pay for it. Okay, I continue with the conversation. I was talking about what goes into the costs and the perception of what needs to be done. Let's talk about due diligence for a second. The diligence is part of this conversation because it's part of taking security seriously. When I started NetworkBox USA in 2003, my due diligence for my prospects and clients was my financials and a liability insurance. Like 2 pages, I was done. Today, all the stuff you see on the screen is probably not even enough for due diligence. Not only they want traditional insurance, they want to see cyber insurance, the financials need to be certified, but also they want to see a company disaster recovery plan. They want the disaster recovery tested and documented. I need a business continuity plan, because most of my clients, in our case, my specific case are banks. I also need an SSA 18 SOC 2. And then we have ISO certifications and PCI DSS attestations. And sometimes our clients come up with other requests. It's become literally like a book. Why do I say this? Because as we have been talking about cost avoidance and all these nice things about how to talk to the Lord, right? Today, security has gone even beyond that. The conversation about cost avoidance is a conversation that is inward. You're still talking about your own company. How much money can I save you by doing proper cybersecurity? This is like you looking in the mirror at yourself, and it just completely misses the point of today's situation in the market. Today, if you don't have proper cybersecurity, the conversation with your prospects and clients is different. An example. After the breach from Target, one of the things that came out seems to be that they were attacked from with their HVAC company was breached, and through that they got through. Okay, or aside from why did they have the passwords and so on and so forth, aside from the conversation, there's an element of cybersecurity for the HVAC company that had to be considered, and at the time probably was not considered completely. I'm pretty sure that today, Target or any other company, when they hire third parties, whether it's for their supply chain or for their air conditioning, or it doesn't matter what it is, they require proper due diligence to vet their security of the company. This is a different approach to cybersecurity that is no longer inward. I'm no longer telling you, Mr. CEO, that by implementing a proper CM, I am saving you $50,000 a month in possible breaches. Now I'm going to tell you, if I don't have it, you cannot do business. Because your clients, those that buy the pipeline services or the toys that we build, are not going to purchase them from us, because they're going to have to give us our information. We have access to their network, and if we don't have proper cybersecurity, they risk getting attacked. We become a cybersecurity risk for them. We become a liability for them, and therefore they are taking our cybersecurity much more seriously. This is a conversation that wasn't happening even until 5 years ago, probably. And today it is happening quite a lot. Okay? So I cannot put numbers to this. It's hard to quantify that. Obviously, the HVAC company that provides the Target, they know the numbers. They know how much they're going to lose if they lose the client. And this is an evaluation each company can do for their own. How much do you stand to lose if you cannot acquire only a new client, or if you lose an existing customer because you don't have proper cybersecurity, or because you get breached? I've had a situation where one of my clients actually had a problem, and they reconducted the problem to a provider that was transitioning them from Exchange on-site to Exchange 365. That provider was attacked. They stole their passwords. With those passwords, they got into my client's 365, from where they looked at all the emails, stole passwords, got into them. That situation, obviously, the client canceled the contract with the provider. The provider is no longer doing business with the company. And how much did they lose? Well, I don't know how much they lost, but they lost the client. They lost the client for the worst possible reason, because they caused a very bad incident to their client. And this is a situation where you do not want to be. Aside from losing your database, losing your data, losing whatever you want to talk about when it's in your own company, one situation where you do not want to be is that your breach causes a problem to somebody else. It's just the worst position to be in, because now it's no longer, you can't any longer calculate the possible risk, because the possible risk is lawsuits, is reparation of damage, it's no longer having a client, it's losing image in your industry, and maybe no longer having many clients, because today, thanks to the internet, we live in a very small town of 350 million people. So because a problem to somebody goes in the news, everybody else knows, it becomes a cascading of problems. So we get to the point where without proper cybersecurity, your business can no longer exist. Therefore, aside from all the conversations that we are having about the cost avoidance, the ROI, the real conversation we need to have in the board or with your CEO is the fact that when we ask for something, we're not asking for a mandatory. We're not asking for a tool. We're asking for ensuring that the company can exist tomorrow, because today you are protecting the company.
So, Pierluigi, Tony asks that it's amazing how, well, it's a comment, how the cost and compliance requirements has grown over the years. And maybe we could tag on to that question. In your opinion, has increased compliance led to more security?
This is another. Our listeners are asking some very intelligent questions that require hours to answer. It's a really nice question, because really my approach, my take on this has always been being compliant doesn't make you secure. The fact that I just passed with flying colors my SSAE 18 SOC 2 doesn't make me feel any better about the security of my company. Right? That's not the reason why you do compliance. However, the unfortunate position until today has been that most companies try to try to avoid spending money on security, and therefore compliance has become a tool to force them to adopt security. I want to give you an anecdotal example that happened in 2003. I ran a vulnerability scanning on a bank in North Texas, and I found nothing, zero. Just a very high level vulnerability scanning, nothing more. And they decided they were fine. Come to find out later from my researcher that they had the Linksys router. They were being protected by Linksys router. And because the vulnerability scanning came out negative, the auditors decided that they were fine. Well, the reality is that's not a proper way to evaluate security. There was a virus at the time called the Code Breader that was passing through the firewalls and piercing them from the inside out. They weren't secure, but the auditor wanted the vulnerability scanning. We did it. They said we're fine, and they moved on without any spending any more money. So were they compliant? Yes. Were they secure? Absolutely not. Was I able to convince them that they needed more? No, because in their eyes they were compliant, and therefore they were fine. They were trying to check a little box in their business daily routine, and that's the danger of compliance. If people take it as a checkbox, where okay, I got this, I got that, I got the other, and I'm fine, and they get complacent because they think that means they're safe, secure, then compliance is actually a problem. If people use it as a tool to verify their security and improve on it, then it can be useful. It's just a matter of how you do it. I don't have anything else. The presentation, there was the last slide. I will give you another. The last slide is actually this one, with all our presence on the web, but that's okay. Thank you for the time. I cannot hear you, Umesh. You are muted.
There is a comment in the stream that says that unfortunately businesses don't realize how much they need cybersecurity unless and until they're held ransom. You know, let's talk about ransomware a little bit, and how does that, what are you seeing as the major vectors as people have moved home? Is there increased risk from the remote workstations and remote users? Some of the more mature businesses have VPN access and they're using corporate machines. Some people have gone home, they're using a personal machine. They are sharing machines with their families, and their children are playing on the Xbox. And then you have a Wi-Fi segment that maybe not, that's a shared segment. You want to kind of just talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. Another hour conversation. Cybersecurity is everything we discuss. It takes a lot of analysis, in my opinion. But I had this conversation with one of my clients early in March, and he was asking me, "Is it okay if I allow my users to go home and use their personal computer?" And I told them, look, if they don't have to do heavy graphics, right? All they need is a regular i5 computer. They're costing them for $300-400. You have 50 users, that's a cost of $15,000. You install them with your corporate standards, with your corporate endpoint security. You give them VPN to the box, and you put them on a different segment of the Wi-Fi if possible, and you ensure that they only use it for the office. You have a chance of being safe. For $15,000, is it really worth risking that one of them is using a personal computer that is already compromised, and that whatever is on the computer gets through into your network, and your entire network gets compromised, and you lost maybe $1 million? Is it really worth the risk? So again, it's as always a risk analysis evaluation. The larger companies may need to spend more money, but the problem is the risk is higher. Allowing users to use their personal computers, the ones they use from home and share possibly with their children, is an absolute no-no for any company, period. Simply because it is known. If you Google it up, you'll find 85% of home computers are known to be part of a botnet, to be compromised. The cybersecurity that we use at home on personal computers is just an antivirus. We get about 1,300 new threats every minute. Every minute. There is no way that an antivirus can ever keep up with a kind of threat barrage. Therefore, that's the reason why most of the home computers are compromised. Now you're using a computer that is compromised. You do not know that it is compromised. You allow the computer to get into your network, and you do not know what's going to infiltrate your network and attack your business. It's just not a good idea. So the first thing is absolute separation. Give them a computer that is for the office only, and explain the risk to your users, because it is real. And it's even more real now that they are home and you're not there to control them. And they're not always behind the firewall, because they could disconnect the VPN and just play with the computer. Right? So this is really fundamental. Now, you were mentioning VPN. You said some companies are using VPN. I sure hope they're all using some form of VPN, because if they're using direct access via RDP port 3389, I'm really scared. That is, aside from all the vulnerabilities that have come up over the years, that is exposing a username and password for a computer to the internet, to hackers that have all the time in the world, and they can continue trying. It's just not a good idea. VPN is just fundamental. Not only VPN, by the way, but two-factor authentication. Never more than now, we need to stress the fact that we have to use two-factor authentication. It doesn't cost anything, by the way. Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm running an advertisement here, but with NetOnDocs, you get unlimited number of licenses for SSL VPN, a free two-factor authentication that uses Google open source TOTP with Google Authenticator. It's really not, it's only a matter of setting it up. It doesn't take anything, because we give you a QR code, you scan it, and it's up, it's done. So why risk not using the the two-factor authentication? And it's the only way to be properly secured and allow the users to work from anywhere, from home, from anywhere they want. Besides, if you were mentioning about the shared Wi-Fi is not exactly very secure. If you're not using a VPN, whatever you are doing, the traffic could be sniffed, could be compromised. So even for that reason alone, you need to use it.
Okay. And so to that point, Brian asks, is it wise to assume a no-trust environment during the new normal? or work from home?
I don't. Zero trust is the should be. There is no question about that. I have to say, in a way, I don't want to say that I'm glad that we're in this position because it would be foolish to say that. But if it's a good thing if it's opening people's eyes into this possibility. For years, we've been telling people the land is not a trusted environment. You cannot trust the land. The more the land becomes an open environment, the less you can trust it. And then the IoT, and then the BYOD, and then the cloud. And now we're all working from home. There can be, I don't know, other people can be next. You will be working from the moon. I have no idea. But this environment that we used to call LAN has become so completely open that, yeah, we must adopt zero trust. I have no doubt about it. I would want to see who could possibly challenge the assumption. By the way, another thing I want to, there's something about VPNs in general that bugs me, that since we're here, we're conversing, I want to mention. I see a lot of people, they have these firewalls, IPS, I see them used by some of them are my clients, of course, and then they put a VPN concentrator inside, which has no protection whatsoever, with a leg straight into the line. And what they fail to recognize is that traffic is passing through the IPS encrypted, and therefore it cannot be scanned. And the IPS cannot see anything that's inside. When it gets to VPN, it gets encrypted, it goes inside. And God knows what goes through. You have no idea. In my opinion, the VPN concentrator must also have a firewall and a VPN on it. A firewall and IPS on it. Because the traffic gets decrypted and then it needs to go to the IPS. Because you need to be able to analyze what's being sent from those home computers, if you're using them, what's coming through the line from the VPN. Because you need to be able to scan it properly at deep level inspection. So that's why I am a firm proponent of the fact that your edge device needs to run the firewall, the IPS, and the VPN on the same device in order to be able to scan the traffic. Otherwise, you're just sending encrypted packets through and nobody knows what's going on.
So one more question for you. This kind of goes along, and this is from me to you. You spoke very eloquently about the cost of security and the reputational risk and the customer loss, the repair, the downtime, etc. And when you look at reputational loss, large public companies, you kind of get a feel for that with their stock price. And so on the one side, we have smaller companies and private companies that they have a rash of ransomware, and you have these statistics coming out that they are dead within 6 months or a year. Most of them, like 80%, some ungodly stats are coming out that say about 80% do not survive a massive attack, small and mid-sized companies. But it seems on the public company side, they're able to weather it, and they use a spin and PR approach, and their stock price takes a dip. The investing community thinks of that as an opportunity to buy the stock at a lower price, and then the stock over time rebounds to a higher price than what it was before the breach. Take that for Target, take it for Home Depot, take it for JP Morgan Chase, Verizon, the list just kind of Marriott, Chipotle, the stuff just keeps going on and on and on. Your thoughts?
A couple different directions. First of all, as a herd, we have short memory. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Target isn't exactly a place. If you are a client of Target in some areas, you may not have an alternative. On Depot, yeah, you have an alternative. You can go to Lowe's, but it's not that many alternatives. So it is a short memory. After a while, people who are not in the cybersecurity world won't even remember that it happened. I am ready to bet that if we go and run a survey on the street today about the site of the Target breach, most people won't know what we're talking about anymore. So there is that factor. The other factor is what I discussed earlier. If 0 is here and you are here and you take a die, you go under 0 because of the companies of the business. But if 0 is here and you're up off the chart because you're a very large company, taking a dive takes you in a position where, yeah, okay, you lost some along the way, but you're still in a position to recover. Right? So I think that is what's happening. Then you see, to appease the shareholders, you see things like a shake-up, right? It's a known joke of the CISO. The CISO is the only reason for why companies hire a CISO is so that they don't have to fire the CEO when there's a breach, right? So they fire the CISO, poor guy. But they target the CEO most of the job. So there are these shake-ups, and then they finally make declarations of now we have better security, which obviously you and I are thinking, why didn't you do that before? Right? Why didn't you do it before? Maybe the new regulations that come up after all these events will probably put a much higher price tag on why didn't you do it before, because they will have to pay steep fines and that. But at the same time, in 2013, those regulations didn't exist yet. So they were able to spin it in PR with PR in a way of, okay, we've learned our lesson. Now we're doing better. This isn't going to happen again. Let's move on. Will it happen again for real? We'll see. Hopefully, they truly learned their lesson. I can see from going shopping to this place that they are finally using the chip with the credit card, and their systems are much different in the industry. So they need something. Will that be sufficient to avoid the next attack? Obviously, I don't know. The saying is always that anything built by human can be broken by human. So maybe hackers sooner or later will find a way to get to these new systems as well. But yes, the sheer size of these corporations is what really shields them from going out of business. You're muted. Umesh, you're muted. You're muted. Umesh, you are muted.
I got muted somehow. Sorry about that. But I said size and scale does matter. Yeah, and you have to have a war chest to be able to weather it. So good security is important all the way around anyway. And it's proper fiduciary duty. So we want to thank you so much, Pierluigi, for taking the time and sharing your immense body of knowledge with us today. For our viewers, we will be posting this presentation to the Cyber Houston YouTube channel, as well as to the cyberhouston.org website. Cyber Houston is a coalition of volunteer business, cybersecurity, academic, government, and civic leaders. Our goal is to continuously educate and inform business leaders on how to manage and govern cybersecurity risk. We take lessons learned from our enterprise members and distill them down into sensible economical guidance to help small and mid-sized businesses improve their cyber posture, build resilience, become better and stronger suppliers to the enterprise, all through the lens of helping SMBs grow their business. This guidance comes in the form of the Business Vitality Guide, the guidance for the Board of Directors, the Cyber Preparedness Assessment, and the free Cyber Scan. And all of these resources are done and built from a body of volunteers, business leaders, civic leaders in and around our region. And these resources are always free of charge to our community and their communities. And these can be found under the Resources tab on the cyberhouston.org website. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and special thanks again to our sponsors, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Blue Lance, Reneka Digital, and the University of Houston Downtown. With that, remember to join us on Wednesdays from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Central for our weekly cybersecurity leadership series. Be safe, stay healthy, have a great day.